What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on Rich Paul and LeBron James and the fact that they just basically every time they speak on Michael Jordan and they this GOAT debate or they throw shots at Michael Jordan, this just, in my opinion, just exposes the fact that this is basically their business plan, like their business blueprint. And if this is, which I believe this is their business blueprint, is to I guess like be the villain and put clickbait and things out there and say things about Michael Jordan that they know is going to really get a rise out of people, right? Or they think is going to get some attention. Now, if that is, like I said, to me is I'm kind of disappointed for somebody who owns a media company, right? LeBron James owns a media company. He should be able to do better than this. I recently heard that their media company was valued at $700 million, something like that. Why not? If you want to push a certain narrative, why not use your media company to do that instead of having Rich Paul out there doing it, and saying things like this? You don't really need a media company if you're going to have Rich Paul out there just saying idiotic things like what he just said about Scottie Pippen being the most impactful player, more impactful than Michael Jordan. It don't make any sense, right? And so now I don't know what he was on what podcast. I think it was his podcast. Him and what's the guy name? Max Kellerman was on a podcast, and they were discussing. This came up about Scottie Pippen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the audio. Then I'm gonna come back and give some more of my input on what I think about Rich Paul, LeBron James, and their, in their media program.
It sound for y'all.
They're just not, right? Scottie Pippen rings, those six, they're not the same as Michael Jordan's. Right. They're not the same as LeBron James.
But they're pretty good.
But they're good. They're good. If there's some sidekick rings,
I think Scotty's rings are just the same as Michael Jordan's. Why not?
Because he won the best player on the team.
Yeah, but he was the most impactful player on the team.
I get it.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure.
Jordan's 0 for 6.
Sure,
could be.
Who knows? But if
you
replace Scottie Pippen with another All-Star. No one does it without another All-Star.
No,
you got another All-Star. He's going to win more than one.
You can replace him with another All-Star, but just because he's an All-Star don't mean it's Scottie Pippen.
No question. I'm not saying 6. I'm saying, but he's going to win some.
How many All-Stars are going to be willing to take a back seat knowing
100% of every All-Star who ever lived?
That's not true.
If you're playing with Jordan, you got no choice.
No, that's not true because, again, this is where you got to really dive into the type of player. You're talking about just All-Star, okay? Remove that, All-Star. But you're talking about a guy that's 6'9", that plays both sides of the ball, that is 6'7", whatever. He got a 7'3" wingspan, right? He can initiate the offense. The best, you had 3 guys on that team, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, that were on the all defensive team.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. Ron Harper should have been on it too.
Ron Harper, and that was after Harp had the knee issue.
I don't care what anyone says. Dennis Rodman, greatest defender I've ever seen. Yeah.
No one's arguing with
including
you that.
Pippen. Yeah.
No. Well, again, so you had 2 guys who you can argue that was the greatest defensive player you ever seen.
No question.
I'm not discrediting anything. All I'm saying is I also don't agree with you guys kind of saying what Steph rings isn't. Because
all right, so you heard what Rich Paul said. Now, the one thing I don't really like or appreciate or agree with is putting I'm not going to put Scottie Pippen down in order to elevate Michael Jordan, and I don't think that you need to do it the other way, like elevate Scottie and put Mike down, right? So I'm not going to do that. But Scottie Pippen, in my opinion, was one of the greatest defenders that I've ever seen because he was just so versatile, and he could, he could match up with, the 1, the 2, the 3, maybe not so, any perimeter player, Scotty can match up with him, stay in front of him, and affect this shot. So that part is true, right? But like when he starts saying things like, Scotty is the most impactful. Then if you replace Scotty, or if you remove Scotty, Scotty still would have won rings without Mike, right? And I'm just thinking, because I can't believe that Rich Paul even believed this stuff that he's saying about Michael Jordan. I think it's just part of their media program, just to really, in my opinion, just to really get people to talk and start conversations, which I don't mind that, right? But like I said, if you have a media company and you got people on your payroll, people think that Nick Wright is on their payroll. People also think that Kendrick Perkins is on there. And what's the other guy? I forgot the other guy name. But they have, there are a few people out there that, people are saying is on the payroll. Why not have? And I know Nick Wright don't have any problems with saying something off the wall, like, you know what I mean? Like Scotty was the most impactful player. And the reason why I say that is LeBron James needs to have more of a buffer between himself and some of the information that's going out there. So it won't be so obvious that, like LeBron James is the one who's putting it out there. Because when you put it out, everything that Rich Paul say, everything that LeBron James say is basically, because they put themselves under the microscope, everything that they say is basically going to be really, really, really scrutinized. And so I just think that if this is their media plan, is to start a podcast so Rich Paul can go on there and say some off the wall stuff like what he said about Scottie Pippen being the most impactful, or LeBron James can go on his podcast with Steve Nash, then in my opinion, you wasting your money with this media company that you have, because I think that they can do a more professional and a more thorough job. And like I said, put a buffer in between, a buffer, more of a buffer between LeBron James. Like if I own a media company and my media company is valued at $700 million, I'm talking about everything except for basketball. I don't want to, and if I'm LeBron James, I don't want to be a part of that GOAT conversation. I'm talking about, I talk about almost do like what Kobe did, be more of an ambassador for the game, right? Because I think it's more important for LeBron James to cultivate a image and make himself look a certain kind of way, instead of being a lightning rod for these conversations, knowing that people are going to go after him. Unless LeBron James is going to completely lean into the like, what can I say? Lean into like the villain, then I don't think he's doing himself no favors by having Rich Paul coming out there saying crazy stuff. Max Kellerman, out there saying, co-signing Rich Paul when he say crazy stuff. Then you got LeBron out there himself. He's saying a bunch of crazy stuff that people are pushing back on. That's what you got Nick Wright for, and Kendrick Perkins, right? To me, it's just a waste. I think it's a waste, and I think it's a bad move, because LeBron James he's going to paint himself into a corner, because now if he's saying the same thing that these guys are saying, or he's talking about these things, he don't have any wiggle room, no wiggle room at all. And I don't know. I just think that Rich Paul is not doing LeBron James any favors when he come out and he says stuff like this. That's just, nobody even thinks that Scottie Pippen was more impactful than Michael Jordan. Scottie Pippen had an opportunity to show what he could do when Michael Jordan retired, and I think they did go to the playoffs one of those years when Mike wasn't there, but they didn't win a ring without Mike. Mike didn't win a ring without him. So in my opinion, I just think that both of those guys were very important to the team, and Scottie Pippen definitely brought something to the table that you know, that really helped Mike out, right? You know, like Mike, although Mike was a great defender, you don't want to put Mike on the best player on on the other team at all times. You know, you want to kind of save Mike for the offense. But the thing about Mike, he would go back down the other end and play tough defense, right? So I don't know. I just think that Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, that tandem, in my opinion, was the best basketball tandem in history. But yeah, and Rich Paul, the more he talked, the more the more he sound like he don't even watch basketball. Like he's just putting narratives out there, and it really, to me, it's really not making any sense. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.